Good. Well, Nico, hi. This is Andrew in Cambridge saying hello to you in New York, where you've been, I think, probably pretty solidly for the
More or
last
less.
X
I
months.
I got to San Francisco for a week to conduct, and then back, and then further lockdowns. But as I speak, I see people walking around nearly maskless. So I think we're nearly through.
We're getting there.
Touch wood.
We had this great moment the other day when we were told that we could walk through the courts of the college without masks on, and it's complete revelation suddenly seeing people in their wholeness.
It's
Anyway,
I find they finally allowed you could take a bike ride without masks, and that's been so fantastic. I haven't felt the wind on my face in
for sure.
16 months. And also, when you pass someone on the street, you can actually smile at them
Yeah, yeah.
and look kind of benevolent
And
rather than
all these tiny little, they sort of micro something, the word is, isn't
"Hmm,
it? Communication things that we do. Anyway, thank you for doing this, particularly at what must be a little after breakfast time for
oh,
you.
I've been up since 6. It's
Oh,
fine. Long since fed."
and so the dean and I have started this mini podcast series, mostly for the students, where we just challenge people we love and admire to give us 10 minutes on what they think really matters. So thank you for doing this. And
My pleasure.
I'm now saying, so Nico Muhly, what really matters to you?
Well, I was thinking about this in the context of what I've missed in this period, but also what has been a through line through it. And so for me, what really matters is how accessible music is, can be, will be, and was. And I think one of the things that I find so jarring about this last 16 months is how we've disconnected from time. So it's very difficult to know, oh, okay, it's December, now Christmas is soon, or Hanukkah is soon, or as we were just talking today, it's Ascension Day today. And I wouldn't in the normal times I would have absolutely known that. I would have been hyper aware of it just because you sort of go through the liturgical year with music. And now it all feels very abstracted because that music is gone. So even these small reminders that even if it's 4 people halfway up, right? If it is a small reminder that there is still a bigger clock at work as opposed to emptiness, has I think been incredibly important and incredibly meaningful to me. And I also was reflecting on, I think what does really matter now is that we all have access to so much music, and it's so. I was thinking about how much more difficult it would have been if this had happened 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when the internet didn't have music on it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
when you were restricted to what you had in your house. And that initially I thought, wouldn't that be a tragedy? Then I also thought, wouldn't that be amazing to be marooned with whatever bizarre recordings of the Beethoven symphonies you happened to have around, or that one sort of Cambridge Singers bird anthem disc, from and thinking about those two paths of accessibility and those two paths of what we've been forced to reckon with. So that is an incredibly meaningful thing to me.
Yeah. I mean, you've just being able to mark the passage of time with liturgical music, and it's such a bizarre loss. And I can't remember sometimes what month we're in. And about the only thing I can hang on to is I can't even look at the weather because the weather has become monochrome.
Right,
It's
exactly.
been cold since October. So
Not
having
helped by the fact that you live in a more or less monochrome weather location.
yeah, yeah. So we don't have extremes of anything here.
I just I mean I think, but it is as you say, it's like all the things that delineate what the year could be, right? And I remember thinking last year, I mean this is the stupidest thing ever, but I remember thinking when they canceled the Nutcracker, it was like they literally canceled Christmas in New York. That's it. It's a wrap. Like, and then you think, okay, so no one's singing, no one's doing these things, no one's doing, you can't continue the through line of certain traditions, and everyone had to invent kind of new ones.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been aware because we've been in touch, and I've seen how you've been talking about how it's been. And it would be easy, wouldn't it, for people to think, oh, well, the composer is there in his garret, or in your case, what we can see, writing, and yeah, there it all is, with a special person to your right, who we may see before we finish.
A fat little dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that in a way the composer's life is essentially rather eremitical and tucked away. But actually, I mean, I don't know whether this is common to composers now or whether this is specific to you. I get the sense that actually being out and about and performing is pretty crucial to the whole process and to your life, actually.
It is indeed, and I think it's not just performing so much as just being around other people.
Mm.
And something that I've reflected on, and this is something that is good and bad to a certain extent, is how much the sort of serendipitous connections that one makes in a new place. So for instance, like you go to whatever orchestra and they're playing your piece in Leipzig or whatever, and you I mean me, you have sort of an afternoon off, so you go to some random restaurant that your friend knows someone who works, and you meet that person, and that's a kind of connection. And then after the show, it's mandatory to have drinks at the orchestra, so you do that in the specific place, and the web of your life just becomes ever bigger, even if it's a small thing. And that's not even talking about the music making, right? So that's a whole peripheral thing that when that went away, there was a process of mourning that as well. And then of course I felt sort of superficial, being like, am I just in this for the after concert drinks? But to a certain extent, what there's an that contains an element of fuel that surrounds the making of the music. And I think there's a similarity between the model of the composer as a hermit, right, just making pure music completely unfettered by, or the musicians on the stage. It's like, we are here to work, we are here to do. And it really isn't that really isn't what it is. It's really about communication. It's about being in the same space. And I don't think we realized this until it was really gone, not just for a couple of weeks, but for over a year.
And collaboration is fundamental to you, isn't it? I mean, you have this extraordinary network of people.
Right.
I mean, is it one of those sort of old ways of thinking about how life changes, how career, to put it crudely, has changed for composers over the centuries? That Mozart only ever wrote to commission. Romantic composers wrote because they had to. It's almost as though, I mean, right. Yeah, clearly, and in a garret, whatever. In fact, we were taught at school that it was all the people beginning with B, who were all remarkable composers, and you couldn't take Mendelssohn seriously because he was too rich. That was the way in which we were taught. Things have moved on now, but that capacity to collaborate, and certainly I've missed not being able to be with people, being able, just as I was saying, just seeing people without a mask on has been so wonderful, just for what I do, just wandering about, just
and thinking about what you do too. Is, I mean, and also given your background in the arts, specifically going from a kind of backstage-ish role as a I don't want to say puppeteer, but as someone who you set things in motion, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas now you've pivoted into being very kind of forward facing, right? In an oratory, in a way where you're addressing a group of people, but also in this very intimate kind of one-on-one form of pastoral things that you do, which I imagine was completely kind of sent into oblivion by this whole thing. And in that sense, what we do is not that dissimilar, because it's all about mass communication, right? It's about being in a large room, or being 6 people on stage communicating to a few hundred people, or those moments in rehearsal, right, where or moments in teaching, actually more poignantly, I think, where you say, let's really actually work on this passage together. And that connection is something that is so important, and you can't do it in any other way than being right there next to that
absolutely.
person.
And I remember when I was a singer, I think on the whole enjoyed rehearsals more than performances.
Of course, right, because the performance is terrifying, and you have to be super present, but also totally check out. And you have to, right. Whereas rehearsal is great, and the rehearsal, because there's a little bit of friction to it, right, where you're kind of you're putting it together, and it's ugly, and you're all in it. You're all in the battle at the same time.
So when do you get back to that? When will you be in a rehearsal with people?
There have been little things. So I went to Juilliard and taught a day of sort of chamber ensemble coachings and masterclasses, and it was all masked and the flute players were playing through like bags. It was so stupid, but it was actually really moving, to be in that, I found my body reacting that was like kind of the opposite of, but not a panic attack, just of the intensity of that moment. In September of last year, actually, I went to San Francisco and I conducted the orchestra there
Mhm.
in a super distanced way. But one of the first things that we did was it was 5 double basses or something like that. And you give a downbeat and it was so moving. This is very low, quiet, low D or something like that. And I hadn't heard a low note in my presence in it, and it was, and so I'm going back to San Francisco in 2 weeks' time to do a similar thing. But again, it still feels, you get the music, right, and you get the kind of planning of the week, and then you get a 65-page document that's like, okay, don't look at this person from more than 10 feet away, the camera has to be here, so don't like move off your
Yeah,
spiked podium. It's just so and it's unclear when things will open up, but again, it is also about the passage of time. It's like, for me, as someone who goes to music festivals in the summer, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with myself if I can't listen to Petrushka outside.
yeah.
And like,
The
and
summer hasn't happened.
it
Yeah,
really
yeah,
has
yeah,
it. And the same way, it's
yeah,
like, I want to be listening to Finzi right now and not in my studio. Like, all up in the Lord's house, do I want to be listening to Finzi?
yeah. Yeah, we're getting it tonight. We're getting it
Well, this
tonight.
is what I'm saying, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I'm gonna, I'll zoom in and whatever,
But nobody will be there. It'll be on the webcast page. This is changing actually from next week. The latest in our roadmap, signposted stages, whatever they're called. We're going to be able
I
to
think
get
it's
people in.
interesting to think of also how music informs one's memory of a place too, and a memory of an occasion. A friend of mine, his grandfather died in the early stages of this, and they were told, well, you can come to the church and sit far away, you can't sing but you can hum.
Goodness.
And I think in the same way that one will always remember the music played at someone's funeral, I feel like that family will always remember that strange buzzing. But you think the site specific, time specific, and music specific things that are being forged right now are really odd, but also kind of magical in their
Yeah,
own strange ways.
yeah, yeah. And it this business of being able to mark out our lives, have waymarkers in our lives by these seasonal and day specific moments. It must be essential to what it is to be human. We can think ourselves into some kind of modern notion of a space where we don't need such things. We don't need to be three-dimensionally with people. We don't need days and seasons. And thank God for
No, of
music
course
to remind us we do.
and it is exactly, and it's not just, the days get longer or the sun came out, but it's this other sense of how music functions. And like, for me, the most specific and poignant way is with sacred music, because it's so linked up to everything else. But of course, if you're used to hearing Beethoven a certain time of year, or if you're used to you know playing a certain piece, every summer or something, it really does undo a lot of that work. But I hope I'm also one of those people. I refuse to say that there's a silver lining to this, because I think the whole thing is just awful and irreparable and terrible. But I hope that at least having such a kind of strong spotlight put on what's missing, that when it comes back, I hope that we all take it a little bit more seriously, and that you don't skip out on things. Although, one of the things, this is so bad, but one of the things I've been looking forward to so much is not going to something. But this is where it's like, you've said, your whole week is making music, and you're writing and sneaking around and whatever, and trying to figure everything out, and you've gone to 15 shows and a matinee and whatever, and you look at the diary, and it's like, I said I would go to Fanciulla del West tonight, and you think, I would give anything to not go.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And sit at home and like Deliveroo something, and like whatever the opposite of going to Fanciulla is.
Anything except, please. Yeah.
Good opera. I'm not mad at it. It's just the luxury, again, of remembering that time you didn't go, or
Yeah.
remembering that, and I was thinking the other day just about one of the best things I ever saw. I don't even remember what the opera was, but I was in Leipzig, and I had a night off, and I think it was like, Abduction from the Seralia or something. I had a night off, and I thought, I want to go and see what's going on at the Opera House. I bought a cheap ticket, and then this is like 5 years ago. I sat in the back, and I saw the first act, and I was like, "That's the best thing I've ever seen." It was so cool. I left, and I went to sleep, and it was like I missed that moment where it was like it didn't, it wasn't about going to a museum and seeing the whole thing. It was about walking in, seeing the Wilton diptych, getting the hell out. It was like,
Too right. Was it Wittgenstein said if you go to an exhibition or a gallery and think you can look at more than one or two pictures you haven't understood? It's a bit kind of Central European serious, but
that feels a little cruel. But
he set the bar high. He set the bar high.
But I do think, I do think, again, like those I had an amazing moment of being alone with a friend who's a curatrix at MoMA, and it was just the two of us wandering around at the end of the night. And because of COVID, it was just such a bizarre experience. And I know I'll always remember that, but also I'm not sure if I will crave it again.
It was then. It happened.
Yes.
We're going to wind up because we're being deliberately short about this. But I think obviously one of the things that does really matter to you is Oscar. And I think the world should see Oscar.
Shall we have a little journey? Come on, Oscar. Come on, come on. Time to get up. All right, let's go see everybody. All right. You got fat napping face.
Here he is.
So this is Oscar. The good news is the dog doesn't know that there's a pandemic on, and he just knows that he gets to spend way more time with his dads.
Yeah.
And,
oh my goodness, that's going to take some managing, isn't it?
Well, do you know? I mean, the real issue is that so many people. I'm not sure if this is the case where you are, but so many people freaked out last spring and got puppies and also babies to a certain extent, But the idea of welcoming a puppy into your pandemic life and then going back to regular life is so crazy. So I fear that the ASPCA is going to be overrun with cute puppies. And when one goes to the dog park, it's like 15 adorable cockapoos or whatever.
The end of 101 Dalmatians, the happy ending.
Exactly. And there's gonna be a cull. There's gonna be some weird gay Cruella de Vil situation, and you know it just as well as I do.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to actually see you face to face.
2D. But
it's nice to see. I know where you are. Like I recognize this art behind you. It's a lovely feeling to remember that one specific time I went around for drinks and everyone ordered pizza and it was it's like that's a
that crazy room. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, you take care, and I shall see you in real life soon.
I hope so too. Have a good day.
Bye.